Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad and I share two books that we love, count them two, and that we think you should read when, Brad?
Right now, because they're that good.
They're the best.
We promise.
Indeed, absolutely. Well, with that setup, I gotta hear, what have you been reading this week, my friend?
I have been bursting with excitement to share this with you,
Yay!
Jen. I love when I fall in love with books. There's levels of reading and lots of books I like, lots of books I love. And then there are books that I can't explain it. You carry them with you.
Yes.
So I'm going to share it in just like 10 seconds here. I love this book for multiple reasons. It is Attack
Oh,
of
yes.
the Black Rectangles by
Woo!
Amy Sara King.
Yes.
And the storyline, Mac is, I think, about a 12-year-old or so. And he's in a lit language arts class. Teacher passes out in the lit group's books. His book is Devil's Arithmetic by Jane Yolen. And him and his group or partners come across a few words that have been censored in the book, and it takes them on this journey and kind of adventure. First of all, they maybe don't think too much of it, although they were curious, like, why is my book blackened out? And then they were like, well, why are all of ours blacked out? It wasn't just one copy. And then they kind of just go through the process of learning about that and having conversations and asking the people who learning who did it and why, and then not being satisfied with that. And it's really cool. It was really, really, really cool and interesting. And there are so many parallels, I think, to life and other things, not even just related to literacy. It was just fascinating. But another reason, and I love, like, books that I really love have complex plot lines where they're not flat. It's okay, you've got your storyline, but then you also have human beings who are learning how to do life and struggling and working with their parents and stuff. But Mac's dad is a complicated individual, and this is a little bit towards the beginning, so I feel comfortable sharing it. But I won't give anything else away. He Mac's dad kind of led Mac to believe that he's from a different planet. Like, dad is like, I'm not from around here, and takes him on spaceship adventures, and Mac literally kind of believes that he's been flying with his dad, although there's a cool process. You understand why Mac thinks, like, mind of a child. If a dad kind of wakes you up at night and is talking to you, you're half asleep and you're kind of thinking these things. So there's that, which was magically written and done, like, just really, really, really well done. But then there's also the complicated fact of Mac being what's the word, maybe embarrassed. It's complex. Embarrassed might be part of it, longing for more of a relationship with his dad, feeling hurt and angry that his dad gets so angry, and just lots of things. And then the relationship is further fractured, and I won't get into all that because you got to read the book. But I did make some connections just to parts of my own life with, relating to my parents and family. And I just loved, it felt, Jen, there was a sense of healing. I can't explain it. Reading a book with complicated relationships, people that aren't good or bad, they're complicated. I really, really like that. And all of that was taking place kind of, within the plot, but yet less of a limelight. It was just really, really, really cool. So I love this book, and would encourage any educator to read it. And then you can decide for yourselves what age of kiddo or student would benefit most from it. So the book I'm recommending is Attack of the Black Rectangles, that is available now.
Awesome. Amy King, this Attack of the Black Rectangles is Amy's first book for, say, like a middle school audience. She has written, I believe, exclusively, if not primarily, for a YA audience before. And in fact, her book Switch won the Prince Award a couple of years back now. And as you were talking, what I kept thinking about was how Amy King is just a master of what you were talking about, this ability to portray complex relationships, complicated characters, and sort of the messiness of being human, but also the beauty in that mess, like she has such a gift for doing that in her books. And I'm excited that some younger kids, beyond the high school level readers that she's usually targeting, might get to experience that as well. Because I think she really has a gift for doing exactly what you described.
Yeah, I love she does it so authentically, and it comes across effortlessly, although I think
Yeah.
authentic is the more the word I would choose. Quick example, there's a part of the story, again relatively near the beginning, where Mac's dad is visiting at his mom's house, and mom is looking for her favorite coffee mug, and the mug has deep meaning to her because it's connected to her mom. There's a
Sure.
history with it, and she's finally like, "Where's my mug?" And Mac's dad is something like he was evading the question, but basically he had broken it. He smashed it, and
Mhm.
Mac's like, was it an accident or what happened? And he's like,
Yeah.
no, no, no. And eventually it was just he just
Yeah.
broke it because he was mad. And that powerful story didn't say much, but yet it conveyed and spoke volumes about the complexity and why there
Yeah.
might be hurt feelings and relational turmoil. It just was so real. And maybe on some level we can all relate to that in
Yes,
different
that's what I was
ways.
just thinking. There's so many kids who can relate to an incident like that,
Hmm.
that in a lot of ways sort of defines the family dynamic or explains maybe why mom and dad aren't together anymore without coming out and saying this is why mom and dad aren't together anymore, because those things are hard to talk about, and yet kids understand why through through incidents just like you described.
Hmm.
So I love that. I love Amy King, and I'm excited that like I said, that readers of a little bit younger age might get to experience her, and I'm so glad you did too.
Yeah, yeah, loved it, loved it. So what do you have, Jen?
Well, how I'm always looking for connections
Yep.
between our books every single week. And this one has sort of an unusual connection because before the show, Brad and I were pre-gaming, doing our pre-game discussion, and we were talking about the recent NCTE and Allen conferences that I recently attended. And so the way that these two books are connected is that I got to meet both Amy King and the author of the book that I'm about to share. I wouldn't say we're BFFs yet, but I'm still striving, right? I got the growth mindset for
I'm impressed. I'm inspired. I'm also jealous.
but there's this show wouldn't be our show if we didn't name drop somebody, right? So
Exactly. That's the best.
yeah, exactly. So one of the authors who honestly I'd never read any of their other books before meeting them there was Sara Farizan. I think it's Sara. It might be Sara. So I apologize for not practicing that before. But she was telling me and a group of people at our table about her book that was coming out. And I just have to say that Brad, you and I have had this conversation before, although we have many, many things in common. One thing that we don't have in common is my love for like horror, scary books. You do
Mm-mm.
not share that, which I forgive you for. You keep trying, but I understand. And so I'm sure at least one of our 3.5 viewers has heard of the book and then the movie Christine, Stephen King's book Christine, and the movie Christine, which is about this like car that comes to life and kills a bunch of people. It's crazy, right? So Sara Farizan, during her talk to us, tells us that her book is like a mix between, wait for it, Stephen King's Christine and the Goonies. And I was sold. I'm like, just let me hand you my money. Please give me this book. That's what I need right now, right? So her book is called Dead Flip. And I'm going to have you just sort of zoom in down here to can you see what the kid down at the bottom is playing?
Yes. Feel My Power arcade game.
Yes,
Pinball, maybe?
it's pinball. Exactly. Okay. So hang on to that for just a second. Dead Flip takes place in two different time periods. It flips between like sort of October 1987 and I don't remember the time of year, but in 1992. So these 5 years span, right? And it's about these three friends, these three best friends, Sam, Corey and Maz. Okay. And in 1987, they're all like 11, 12 years old around that time. They're getting ready to start middle school, and they're experiencing sort of a crisis that I think a lot of friends at that age experience, in that Maz and Corey are sort of ready to, grow up a little bit. They're thinking about more adult teenagery things, whereas Sam is still kind of a little kid. A prime example is that he really wants to go trick-or-treating, and they feel too cool for trick-or-treating now, right? Because they're getting older, right? And so this friendship, which has been had a really strong bond, in part because of some family tragedies that I won't go into right now, feels frayed, feels like maybe it's about to fall apart. And I bet a lot of kids can relate to that, right? When we transition in our lives, seasons begin and end. And sometimes in those transitions, people fall in and out of our lives, which is hard, right? So that in 1987, this all sort of comes to a head on Halloween, when Maz and Corey agree to go trick-or-treating with Sam, but they get in an argument because Sam's behavior is immature and they are just way too cool for him. And so they leave him. They leave him to go trick-or-treating by himself. And that's the night when Sam goes missing and is never heard from again and can't find him. So you can imagine that this weighs heavily on Maz and Corey, who believe it is their fault, right? That they left their friend and something terrible happened to them and they don't know what it is. So fast forward to 1992, when these two kids are now in high school, and they have grown apart, because the heaviness, the weight of what happened back in 1987 is just too heavy. They can't talk to each other about it. They've grown apart. But then something interesting happens. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Sam reappears. But here's the problem. Sam is still 11 years old. He has not aged. And there's all sorts of mysteries involved in this, which may or may not involve a supernatural human eating pinball machine. And that also involves some mysteries about their town and the people in it. And these three kids now reunited, even though they really don't want to be, it's their job to solve it. So, as somebody who grew up in the 80s and 90s, all the pop culture references in it were like, did my heart good. I wonder about readers now. They may not get some of those things, but I imagine that they would have so much fun looking them up, But for our kiddos who love horror and who love mysteries, what I loved most about this book is that it is scary, but not too scary. I felt like middle school kids, 7th, 8th, and above, could really sink their teeth into this, no pun intended, and not have to leave the nightlight on at night. It's not that scary. So it's called Dead Flip. It's by Sara Farizan, and I feel like you should read it right now. I loved it.
Jenn, that was so motivating. I'm this far away from wanting to read it, but I can't if it's scary at all. But I'm like, if I could get over that hurdle, I would be rushing to the store right now.
I think like all sort of genre books that have like a specific genre slant to them, whether it's fantasy or sci-fi or horror or something else, the best of those books are really rooted in relationships and characters that you can fall in love with and root for, regardless of whether or not there's dragons or killer pinball machines around, those things just add to it. That really, it's the relationships and the characters that you fall for and root for. And this book had that. So I enjoyed that a lot. And I think that aspect of the book you would really enjoy too. But the killer pinball machine might be a bit much. You'd have to decide to abandon it if it was too much for you.
Earlier, I forget what you were saying, but it was something about that we had in common, or something that we had in common. And I was going to say, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was going to finish your sentence saying that we've had dinner with Alan Gratz together.
Yes,
right?
That's exactly true.
Because it
exactly
wouldn't be a year of read this now if I didn't find a way to work that in, right?
Oh, I I love it. I love it. That is
One of the highlights of my life. So
I know, me too. I'm glad I was at the table, but I know that I wasn't the coolest person there. That is for sure.
yeah, I hear you on that one.
Wow.
So if you're looking for other really cool books by really cool authors that Jenn and I have talked about over this year, and actually for the past several years, you could go to bit.ly/read_this_now. Check it out. I do it all the time.
Me too. Me too. Thank you.
We do. Hey, Jenn, it's been a while. Could you indulge me in a book bump? You know
yes,
what I mean?
let's do it. Let's see if we can make it.
I never know what side of the screen to go to. You ready? 3, 2, 1.
Boom. Woo. I love it. I love it. We'll see if that really works.
All right, we'll check it out, see if we got that right. So that way, at least when New Year's eventually happens, maybe we could we'll book toast and we'll get it right.
Do you realize, Brad, that next year, I believe I'm gonna have to double check, but I believe next year is the 4th year of Read This Now. So perhaps we can finally perfect our book bump in year 4. It doesn't matter how long the journey is, as long as you get there eventually, right?
Sounds like a good resolution to me.
I love it. Thank you, my friend.
Good to see you. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.